Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Welcome to the Fly With Us podcast. This podcast is bringing the art of conversation, self-love, self-care, mental health care and protection, life lessons, love lessons, and everything in between. Today, we're going to talk about minding your business. I'm Lady Bounce.
And I am Picket Fence. What's happening?
Hey, I'm here. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Minding your business, huh?
I'm minding my business.
Word up. Okay, so for the Mindfulness Minute, I'm going to read a little excerpt of this book here. Gotta give me a little light in here, kind of dark. Okay. The Buddha once said, "The problem of life and death is itself the problem of mindfulness. Whether or not one is alive depends on whether one is mindful." I'm going to chop this up. In the Samyutta Nikaya Sutra, the Buddha tells a story which took place in a small village. A famous dancer had come to the village, and the people were swarming the streets to catch a glimpse of her. At the same moment, a condemned criminal was obligated to cross the village carrying a bowl of oil filled to the very brim. He had to concentrate with all his might on keeping the bowl steady, for even if one drop fell, the guard behind him was directed to cut his head off.
Wow.
Yeah. Having reached this point in the story, the Buddha asked, "Now, do you think our prisoner was able to keep all of his attention so focused on the bowl of oil? How do you think the criminal was able to keep all of his attention focused on the bowl?" His mind did not stray to steal a glimpse of the famous dancer in the town or to look up at the throngs of villagers making such a commotion in the streets, any whom could have bumped into him at any moment. Another time, the Buddha recounted the story which made me suddenly see the supreme importance of practicing mindfulness of one's own self. That is to protect and care for oneself, not being preoccupied about the way others look after themselves, a habit of mind which gives rise to resentment and anxiety.
Wow. So he didn't spill the oil because having his head attached was more important than looking at the dancing lady walking by.
Hey, he was practicing some serious self-care at that moment.
Yeah, that's a major concentration and mindfulness there. I mean, that takes minding your business to a whole nother level.
A whole new level. He needed that head.
Right.
I think he needed that head.
I think so.
And he didn't care. He didn't care how famous she was. He had what they call centered focus. You know,
okay.
Oil would have dropped, blood would have dropped. That's
Yeah.
probably what he kept saying to himself. If this oil dropped, that blood gonna drop.
That's right.
I think that's enough to make you not pay attention. Now, when we talk about minding your business, there's a lot of different aspects that we can talk about when it comes to minding your business. But let's hit up the definition. What minding your own business means. Minding your own business at the heart is focusing on what you can control and letting go of what you cannot. It is taking responsibility for your own thoughts and actions and letting other people take responsibility for their own thoughts and actions. Word up.
So we kind of hinted on that before when we were talking about accountability, of being accountable, for your actions, the words that you use or don't use, and how you use them. So when it comes to minding your business, that is kind of like the same thing. You're taking that accountability of taking care of what I can control, what is important to me, and then letting everything else kind of fall by the wayside.
Yeah, exactly. Think about how many times people get involved in things like gossip that really aren't their business. You could just be, listening to your people talk and, and gossiping. But as that gossip spreads around, somehow your name might be get caught up in it because not saying too much, but yeah, agreeing or disagreeing.
It's like being guilty by association. You were there, so you said it.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
you were there when it was being said, so that automatically means you agree with it. You didn't remove
E-
yourself
e-
from the situation.
Exactly. So a question that I would pose, like, for example, like, say you're in a group of friends
Hmm.
and somebody is, bad mouthing another friend or associate or whatever you want to call them nowadays. Do you give a response? And what is your response? Do you just say, hey, that ain't none of my business? Or do you try to change the subject, so that you're still minding your own business? What do you do in those situations?
See, that's I have like a threefold answer, I guess, if that makes sense. So depending on who it is, I'm strategic in how I answer. I'm strategic in how I participate. If it's somebody that I have a deep connection with, like say it's a family member or like a really close friend, then I may try to like change the subject. Or if they're talking negatively about that person, I'll say something to remind them of a positive trait about that person. And if when I see that like that's not going anywhere, then I usually just kind of shut up altogether. Because when it comes back, because it always comes back, I don't want it to be said that I said anything, or well, Lady Bounce was trying to defend her. We was talking about, this, that, and the other, and then here come Lady Bounce, always with the good points. If anything, I want my name to be mentioned in that way, that I was kind of taking up for the person. I don't like bullies, and bullies or bystanders for that matter. So I would be the one to probably speak up and try to say something, or say something funny to kind of change the subject and get us to talking about something else.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not a big gossiper person myself. For one, I talk too much. So by saying that I talk too much, I don't remember what I say, because I'm always, because I talk a lot. So I won't say I talk too much. I talk a lot. So I don't always remember what I say. So I err on the side of always speaking the truth, being truthful to who I am. And then that way, even if it does come back, I can say I spoke my truth, or I can stand on my truth. You're not going to be able to throw my name in and say that I was talking trash about anybody, because I don't operate like that. Because, one thing my grandma used to always say, if a dog will bring a bone, he'll take one away. So you sit in a circle of people and you gossip, and as soon as you leave the circle, they talking about you.
Mm-hmm.
So I really try to not get involved. It is hard though, especially working around a bunch of people. Like I work around a lot of people. I work around a lot of women, and that seems to be kind of a natural trait for women. So so it's like hard to turn off something that's a natural trait in women. That's just kind of what we do. Now, I'm sure that men do it too. You guys sit in circles and have conversations, but typically a lot of times those conversations don't get back to the other people involved. So I don't know if that's because men have a certain level of automatic secrecy, like we're in the man club, and what happens in man club stays in man club, and why it's the opposite for women. It's something that I've always wondered and always thought about, because usually when gossip and situations like that happen, it's always women involved. It's very rarely a situation where a bunch of men sat around and gossiped and it got back to one person or something like that, and then it was a big thing or whatever. It definitely seems to be more of a female trait than a male trait. So how do you deal with it?
I agree. Oh, was that all three of your folds away? Those all three of your folds away?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Okay. Um, like you, if it's somebody that we're supposed to be mutually cool with, I would say something. I would change the subject. I mean, because the way you feel is the way you feel. I don't need to know it if it's about somebody on a personal level. You know what I mean? So if it's, like I said, someone that is mutually cool, I would definitely change the subject. I wouldn't tell anybody not to feel the way they feel, but I don't want to be caught up in nothing, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That, like you said, could come back like, oh, you was there, you didn't say nothing. You're going to be able to say, he changed the subject, or he didn't agree with any of it, and I think for me, that's the best way to doing it. Is try not to be involved in it. But like you said, when it comes to men and women, I think men gossip less unless it's some real personal, hardcore beef. You know what I'm saying? If it's something that somebody you really, really don't mess with, then you're going to be saying stuff. And usually, when a group's of guys, if it's somebody that somebody don't mess with, it's usually everybody doesn't mess with them. But occasionally you will have, you know what I'm saying, some excuse me, especially somebody like me, coming from being able to get along with people from all types of backgrounds. Sometimes a particular background won't get along with another background that you're cool and familiar with. So you might have little blah, 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 yakety smackety. So for me, the best thing is to do is just change the subject. You feel the way you feel, that's cool. I don't feel that way. You know what I mean? Because even times when something is not bad, if it gets back to a person, they're going to be salty.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be salty. It might not even be a reason to be salty. You know what I mean? And then they're going to take it out on everybody. I've had situations like that. Somebody do something that everybody knows is whack. And if you have a conversation about their whackness, they're going to be salty. And that's another thing is, separate from minding your business is when you talk to someone, are you okay with their response? If they're your friend, can you handle what they have to say back to what you're saying? You know what I mean? Like if you coming to a person and you're talking about your problem, whatever, or something that you did, are you able to handle your friend saying, nah, that ain't cool? That's whack. Or you shouldn't have done that. Can your friend say that to you? And a lot of times, and especially nowadays, I find that people can't help it. If your friend can't even tell you something for your own good and benefit without you getting upset. That's another reason it's important to mind your business. I guess like back in the day, the old folks used to say, you got to let that person make their own mistakes sometimes. Even though you don't want to see them make that mistake, sometimes you got to let them go. And if you're really, really your friend, you just be there on the afterburner. But it's hard sometimes, especially if you know in your mind and heart, this person is really doing some dumb stuff. I feel like I should tell them, stop doing that dumb stuff. They might get mad at you. That's the type of world we live in where you can't even talk to your so-called friends.
Right.
And I think that's a sad part of reality, but it makes you think about minding your business even more.
And I was thinking about that as you were talking. And you and I have this conversation all the time about, when we see people out that are like dressed sloppy and it's a group of them. And I'm like, my first thing I always say is, you're with your friends. Why didn't your friend tell you that shirt don't fit? Why didn't your friend tell you, hey, sis, that's not the move? Or like when we see couples out, especially, I'm like, why you didn't tell your wife or your girl that, all them, stomachs hanging out is not the move? Like, put some clothes on. You look like busted biscuits. Like, I don't understand, why we're around people that we can't be honest and truthful with. If I put on a shirt and I look like stuffed sausage, I expect you, being my friend, to say, hey, Lady Bounce, you might want to change that shirt. That's not the move today. And you should also expect that if you say that, then I'm going to be like, dang, really? Okay, let me go get another shirt. As opposed to what you were talking about of getting upset and now I'm ready to fight because you say my shirt is too little. You know, why don't we have those kind of friendships where you can tell your friend, you know, you can be honest with your friend without like being in their business, quote unquote.
Yeah, because that's the first thing. Why you in my business?
Yeah.
Why you out? You always in somebody's business. We supposed to be cool. I thought some of our business is mutual. If we cool, we
Right.
in the business of friendship, partnership.
If we're
But
going out
I
in
think
public
that that's the
together,
reason.
how I look is your business.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, we representing each other, but I think that over the last however many years, our programming has changed where people you can't tell me nothing. I'm self-made. I do what I want to do. I ain't doing this for you. I ain't looking good for no man. I'm naked for no reason. I'm naked for myself, even though I can't see myself except if I'm in the mirror or taking selfies. But I guess that's enough. I'm doing it for myself. I ain't trying to impress. Who are you to tell me? You can't talk to people. And I think on the other end, the person on the other end, they say, why risk the argument? So I think some business you should mind, and I think that sometimes we're forced to mind our business to avoid confrontation. And it just shows that our programming is deteriorated to the point where it's messing up communication and communicational skills.
So I saw this,
and that's a hard place to be.
I saw this interesting question, and it says, why do we get into other people's business? And the answer says, interfering in other people's business can be so ingrained that we do it subconsciously. Most of the time, it's not an action, it's with the words or with the thoughts. We can't wait for the person to finish so we can jump in with our advice. The underlying reasons behind our behavior are usually one or a combination of you feel like you know better, or you have rigid expectations for the other person. Do you agree with that?
I think those are really, really plausible things. I think that I think that there's a lot of truth in that. I think there is a lot of truth in that. And once again, I think that is because the current programming that we on, it makes us feel a certain way and think a certain way. It's just like, they say we have freedom of speech and free will, but we really don't. Not everybody, I would say, because there's so much stuff that guides you to think or say certain things. Like, for example, cancel culture. It's out of hand. People don't want to say it. I'll say it. It's out of hand. Because when you're quick to cancel people, there's no room for learning. One. Also, we don't take in consideration generational thought, which I think we've talked about on the show before, is someone from a certain generation might think a certain way that is not okay now. And like I said, if you just cancel them, you don't leave room for teaching. And I don't believe that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm constantly learning, and I'm an old dog. These rap dudes say AOG is what they say. But I'm constantly trying to learn, and willing to learn. And I just think that the way we think now is different from the way we may have thought 5 years ago and 10 years ago. Our parents, grandparents era of thinking. And I think that a majority of people on this programming of you can't tell me nothing, you ain't nothing, self. And selfishness is separate from self-care.
Yes.
And I think that people try to act as if they're the same thing, but they're not. There's a big difference. The only really sameness of it is the word self.
Right.
And that's it. So, what do you think?
About
the quote that you just read?
I agree, especially the part about sometimes it can be so ingrained that it seems normal, to be in people's business or to gossip. I often have to say in my profession, which is I'm a high school teacher. So I say a lot. We teach students. We are not the students. We should know to be, for lack of a better term, better behaved, more professional. The gossiping that middle and high school girls do, we are adult women, and we shouldn't be doing that. We should find other ways to connect that's not negative. And it seems as though some friendships, like, I had a friend that the only purpose she served in my life was to be negative. When I was having a moment where I was being negative, she was the go-to person. And I know that whatever I was feeling that was negative, she would not only be there for, but she would feed into it, and she would fuel it in ways that ended up becoming unhealthy for me mentally. So I had to realize that the only purpose you serve in my life as a friend is to feed my negativity and feed into my negative thoughts. So that friendship ended up dissolving, and it kind of dissolved, like, on her end. She was really upset that I drew that boundary and said, hey, for my own mental health care and protection, I can't continue on this friendship because that negative pattern of thinking and feeding into that negativity is no longer serving me. So I have to stop. And then I realized that stopping the negativity gave us nothing else to talk about. Our whole friendship was connected and centered around negativity. And it was a hard pill to swallow, for me, because I thought I did like her. I thought we were friends until I, like they say, gave it the old college try and tried to incorporate some positivity into our friendship. Like, well, let's hang out and not talk about and dog out the people at work. Let's not talk about, the students or their parents. Let's just, hang out and talk about girl stuff, or talk about, stuff that mothers or friends would talk about. And I quickly realized that by not having those negative, gossipy kinds of conversations, that there was nothing there in the friendship. And that was rough.
That's a tough one. Yeah, that's a real tough one, because there are some people that just, what we call in the metaphysical world, energy vampires.
Yes.
And they're negative energy fuelers. Some people that, like you said, you were having a negative thoughts and bad feelings, and instead of being a person that could ease that from you, they were a person that put gasoline on the fire. And that's hard, and it's a hard line to tell between some people that just want to dump stuff on you. Some people don't want your advice. They want to dump stuff on you, but that can be draining sometimes for the person that's just listening. It's also, even if it's not draining for the person has to wonder, like, should I give advice? Does this person want advice, or does this person just need somebody to listen to? So, it's kind of a hard line, of when you should mind your business, or if you should mind your business. Are you being helpful? And I think that we probably should just lean to more about minding our business, because that's what this episode is about. But it is a hard line. So, if you out there listening, please tell us what your thoughts are about minding your business. When should you mind your business? Is it okay just to mind your business? Or do you give too much advice? Are you a person that likes to give advice? Are you a person that just likes to dump your problems just to get it out? Not that you're trying to drain a person, but are you just a person that is looking for an outlet to drain, to get your thoughts out, and you don't want advice? And how do your friendships work with that? So today's for this week, our self-care assignment is going to be, we've said it before, but we're going to set boundaries on giving advice and set boundaries on how much information you dump on a person, or how much, not information, how much information you give a person that you can't trust. Because that was something that we talked about in here as far as the gossiping.
Right.
You know, how much information do you, somebody that's not trustworthy, and also for those people that people come to you for advice and to listen to, how much advice do you give? Can you mind your own business? Can you just listen and not give advice? So those are two things. Can you listen without give advice? That's one self-care assignment. Or if you're a person that needs to get your feelings out, how much information can you limit yourself to giving to somebody that's not trustworthy? Two self-care assignments to think about and do this week. Now to my favorite part. Go ahead.
So what I was just thinking before we go to the brain science, something you said sparked the thought.
Okay.
I'm one of those people where I know by nature, because I don't act on a lot of things in my head, I have the tendency to be a dumper. And so I definitely know that I have to work on that, because there are times where I just need to get it out of my head. And then once I say it, then it stops me a lot of times from like going off on the person that is aimed at. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that helps in that particular situation is whoever I choose to be, but whoever I choose as my victim that day, to listen, to let them know ahead of time, hey, I'm not looking for advice. I just really need to get this out.
That's good. I like that.
And saying what you said about, being careful about what advice that you give out. Maybe when the person is coming to you, before they start, or maybe even midway, like as soon as you get a chance to talk, when they started talking, is ask them, do you want me to give you advice, or do you just want me to listen?
I like that. Add those ingredients to the self-care assignment. I like that. I think so. Add those ingredients in the self-care assignment. Write that down and add those ingredients. Cook on medium high. Now to my favorite part of the show. Brain science.
All right, so we're talking about minding our own business. I'm going to give you the brain science of minding your own business. These guidelines can be applied in most situations. First of all, like I just said, don't offer advice unless you are specifically asked for it. You are not obligated nor expected to chime in. Second, offer your help or advice with no strings attached. If you have expectations, take a step back and try to neutralize your thoughts about the situation. Help only from a place of love and compassion, not guilt or expectation. In other words, don't give a person that advice and then expect them to take it and then be upset when they don't take it. So if you take away that expectation, if they decide not to take your advice, then you're not upset. This is my favorite one. Remove yourself from situations where you need to take sides and the situation does not involve you or could potentially damage a relationship. You will not do others a favor by getting in their business. Let them sort it out, and if they need your help, trust that they will ask for it. When you mind your business, you will feel lighter. You're not in charge of the universe. You are more at peace. You are reasonable and responsible for your life and free from expectation and disappointments. So start today by focusing on your own needs and your business. Trust that others and the universe will take care of their business. The more you trust and focus inwardly, the more things start falling into place the way that they were meant to be.
Word up. Yeah, I think that's a wrap. Hey, please remember to invite your friends to like our Facebook page. Tell a friend about us. Please comment, email us, let us know how we're doing. Let us know some topics that you would like to hear about for us when it comes to self-care. And if you're able to, please become a patron Information is down below or up top on how you can become a patron to help us to continue to bring self-care and fly on a journey of self-care. Word up. I'm your boy Picket Fence.
I'm Lady Bounce.
We out of here.
Peace.
Peace.